Hey, Pat, how do you find
Yeah.
Will Smith in a snowstorm?
How?
You look for the Fresh Prince. Everyone, welcome to the new and improved podcast, formerly known as Off the Bench, now known as Brand Coverage. I'm Brandon Carney, alongside Pat Gustafson. Thank you guys for joining us. Pat, how are you doing this fine evening, and how do you feel about the shift over here to the main channel? This is the big time, you know?
I'm looking forward to being exposed to more people. Not literally.
You're exposing yourself? Deshaun, relax.
Enough super chats come in, then we might have. If that's what the people want. No, exciting times. Obviously, we had a great group over at our YouTube channel, but modest. Yep. We know those guys and gals are still here. We love them. We love people who are tuning in here for the first time.
Yeah, what it ultimately came down to, just to cover the rebrand here, is look, when this pod started almost like 2 years ago at this point, it was just me. Pat wasn't here yet. I was under the umbrella of Heavy Sports, the brand, and they were like, hey, come up with a podcast name. And I was like, how about Off the Bench? Like, I'm Benchwarmer Brand, we're kind of getting off the bench to talk about these topics. It sounded like a great idea, right? My dumbass did not look up how many other shows were called Off the Bench, and so the searchability of this pod was just brutal. Like, there were so many other Off the Benches, and credit to, both me and my team and everybody that's ever worked on the show. We were maybe the most successful of the Off the Benches, at least on your Spotify's, on your Apples, which is where you can find this podcast, by the way, audio version on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcast. But it just wasn't good for like the long-term recognizability or searchability or anything. So I figure let's go brand coverage, and hey, let's do it at a time where I'm going to move the show to my main channel, because you guys, everyone watching right now, have been so great with the couple of live streams that I've done on this channel that I figure let's go live a little more often. I'm already going live once a week. I might as well do it on a channel that, you guys actually know about. As much as I try to shepherd you over to the other channel, it's just human nature. Not everybody's going to do that, and I totally understand. So might as well just get everything over here. So yeah, if you're new here, this is a NFL-focused podcast, fantasy football-focused podcast. We mix in, some other stuff here and there, but those are the two things we definitely talk about the most.
A very unfocused podcast.
There is an element of ADHD to this podcast for sure. But yes, NFL and fantasy football focus. And now that we're on this channel, look, more exposure, more guests, more everything. So stay tuned. And on tap for today, we've got some headlines from around the league, including a slightly controversial kicker and some NFC North quarterback news. We'll also be reacting to the NFL schedule officially releasing, and we are starting our fantasy football divisional previews. I know it may feel a little early, but we almost have to start them now to get them out, before like actual draft season gets here, if we're going to be doing one show a week. So it's 8 divisions. We're going to start today with the AFC East and basically just do a deep dive into the fantasy landscape of that division, relevant players, sleepers, busts, all that. So it'll be a good time. Pat, for now, let's get into the news, baby.
Good evening. I'm Ron Burgundy, and this is what's happening in your world tonight.
So, we start here. Harrison Butker. Good old Harry Butt making the most headlines here in the NFL over the past week or so. I think that's an appropriate nickname for him. And look, before we get into the fun topics, we have to cover this because apparently Chiefs players just can't help themselves. Astute observers of this live stream will tell you that the original thumbnail for this episode was a picture of Harrison Butker with me calling him a moron because, like I said, his speech is probably the biggest NFL news we've had in the past couple weeks other than his teammate. And I changed it. I changed the thumbnail, and not because I'm backing off my opinion on anything, which I will tell you that in a minute. Basically just because as soon as I posted it, people in the comments were beefing with me, beefing with each other, and I didn't want people's first impression of this show to be like, oh, they're just going to talk about controversial stuff like this all the time, and it's just going to be bad vibes. Like, we're going to talk about stuff when it's relevant like this, and this is absolutely relevant. But it's not like stuff like that's not going to be the focus. We're here to be sarcastic morons and talk about football and fantasy football.
Speak for yourself, but
yes, you're here for the intellectual and political commentary. I'm here to be the sarcastic football moron. No, you are. We are two bearded football morons, and that's what we're here to do. But again, in this case, it does have to be addressed. So I'll say this. About the speech, people are interpreting it in different ways. If you like what he said, good for you. If you think what he said was harmful or offensive, I'm with you. And I've seen people say like, oh, he was just saying that having a family is more important and more fulfilling than having a career. That wasn't all he said. And if you're telling yourself that's all he said, you are oversimplifying it greatly. He framed it in a way that diminished the idea of wanting and striving for a successful career as a woman and wanting promotions and all that as if it's wrong or not the optimal way to live in favor of, starting a family and being a homemaker. That is a wild thing to do at a college graduation, regardless of the type of college. I understand it was a Catholic school, but regardless. Also, the nuns at this school denounced the speech after because of the same thing, saying one of our concerns was the assertion that being a homemaker is the highest calling for a woman. So I didn't think Butker was right for what he said. He also shit on Pride Month, which wasn't cool. Like, it said a bunch of other stuff. So I'll just say this to get this out of the way. This podcast, this channel, myself, Pat, we welcome everyone from every background, religion, race, sexuality, whatever. If you like sports, especially football, you are welcome here. Hell, if you don't like sports, you're welcome here. I don't know what you're doing here, but you're welcome here. So that's that. We love you guys. Just be respectful of each other. We don't want to have to ban people because they're being rude in the chat or whatever now that we have, a slightly bigger viewership here on YouTube. So just be nice. Let's have fun. And now we can move on and talk about actual football stuff that doesn't involve a kicker. Pat, look at us. We're talking about a kicker in May. Maybe this was his plan all along, to stay relevant because we weren't talking about kickers in May. Goddamn Harrison Butker.
They just don't want to be. They all just want to get a little more airtime than Taylor Swift.
I mean, seriously, the jealousy is palpable. But speaking of the Chiefs, Pat, Harrison Butker's teammate Rashee Rice, the assault charges were dropped on him. So look, this is one less problem that Rashee Rice has to deal with, I guess. But again, the Chiefs just having some bad headlines here. One of them going away. Now he's just dealing with kind of the 8 other charges. Now into some more fun things because I'm sick of the controversial, depressing things. Pat, how about this? How about Joe Burrow's hair? I mean, my goodness, what a mane. Have you guys, anyone watching, type 1 in the chat if you've seen Joe Burrow's hair because it's Anakin Skywalker. That is, my girlfriend Lexi made that comparison, and then I started seeing it all over social media. I was like, oh my, you are absolutely right. That is Anakin Skywalker. So I'm just jealous, Pat. I don't know about you because you and I are both follically challenged. But this is a hell of a head.
Do I dare tip my head down?
If you wanna blunt,
it's not good, folks.
King Neptune.
Bald.
I mean, this hair, man.
I saw a great tweet. I forget. It was like POV. You're a Subaru dealer about to sell an Outback, and it's just some guy that looks like that.
I mean, I look at that picture and I see a man ready to absolutely torch the league. I don't know about you. The mane is magnificent, and I'm very excited to see it in action, even though it is going to be covered by the helmet. But, Pat, just imagine the slow-mo, the helmet, take off, the hair just blowing in the wind, or, the little whip the hair back. God, I'm aroused just thinking of it.
He's like Trevor Lawrence, except he doesn't look like a horse and is good at football.
I'm glad you said it because I didn't want to say it. I met the guy. He's very nice. Trevor Lawrence is one of the few
I'm sure
players.
He's a wonderful person. I hope he finally has that breakthrough. I hope so.
One of the few players I've actually met, and is just one of the nicest.
Come on the podcast, Trevor.
So yes, Trevor, please. So I don't want to sit here and just be mean to him, but yeah. Burrow may just be the better Trevor at this point. He also, honestly, the hair, like the flow, is a little bit more Herbert reminiscent when Herbert has it really long. So either way, maybe it's just maybe every great quarterback needs to have really long hair, I guess. At least the white guys do. I don't know. Maybe it's just a pact they've all signed. Speaking of Joe Burrow, Pat, Joe Burrow is continuing to be the highest paid quarterback in the league on an annual basis, but he has someone new behind him in the number 2 slot. And gosh dang it, it's Jared Goff. Jared Goff signs a massive Massive extension. 4 years, $212 million, $53 million a year. Pat, this extension was expected. What was your reaction to the dollar amount when you saw this news come through?
Like, I understand that the market gets shaped every time someone gets a new deal, and a lot of the times the most highest paid player isn't necessarily the most deserving. We didn't need to do this with Jared Goff. we did not need Jared Goff to be someone that obviously he didn't reshape the market, but if a guy like Jared Goff is getting paid that, this money is going to be absolutely flying for these quarterbacks who are coming up on a new deal. But at the end of the day, though, I respect the Lions for locking up a guy who has led that team back to not only relevance, like they are a perennial contender here in the NFC, and that should be rewarded. He's been really solid, but it's a lot of money for a guy who, with a relatively small sample size of playing at a really high level, but... And he's got to be getting older now too. By older, I mean like 30, so maybe not.
He's probably like
he's 29. Oh God,
yes,
so
okay.
We're old too.
Oh,
so
God.
He's got plenty of time left. So no need to worry about that. But it's just I'm just like you're gonna get like the cartoon like boom eyes when we see some of these numbers on some of these future contracts.
Oh yeah, it's one of those deals that is definitely just the product of the market, like you said. And I mean, I think it makes sense. Let me adjust this camera to where I want it, because it's sorry folks, technical difficulties. You'll get used to it here at
there's
Brand
always camera
problems. Formerly off the bench. Yeah, it'll die anytime soon, I'm sure. Yeah, it's one of those deals that it was kind of, the Lions had no choice, right? Like they made it to the NFC Championship game this past year. Jared Goff is playing the best football of his career. He's a great fit in that offense, but it's just one of these cases where like he fits in the category of quarterbacks that you can win with, but you're not going to win because of. He's just the guy that can very much, and as well as anyone, maybe steer that Lions ship that they've built, putting all those great weapons around him. So I understand the need to pay him essentially whatever it costs to keep him around, because what's your alternative? You're going to hand the keys over to Hendon Hooker or just go for a free agent? Like, that's not how the quarterback market or the NFL team building in general works. So even though it looks like, and probably is, a steep price from a talent perspective, Jared Goff's probably, no disrespect, but maybe the worst of the top 10 highest paid quarterbacks, other than like Deshaun off the top of my head. He's probably better than Kyler Murray at this point, but Kyler puts together a healthy season, who knows, on just a talent for talent basis. I think this deal, it makes sense. It just means it's going to be a little harder now for the Lions to put these pieces around him in the future. They've got all these great weapons right now. A lot of them are on rookie deals. I mean, I believe they extended Amon-Ra St. Brown this offseason as well, so they've got him around at least. But you've got your Jahmyr Gibbs, you've got your Sam Laportas, and they are, for all intents and purposes, not being paid. And so, the Lions are going to get to a point where they have to pay those guys. They have to pay linemen. They have to, make sure their defense continues to be passable at the very least if they want to keep making these deep runs into the playoffs. So it's a tough move. It's a tough one to swallow, just from he's not good enough to be a $53 million a year quarterback, but it's you really had no other choice.
Tua's going to be making like $70 million a year by the time he gets extended.
Man, yeah, and that brings me to the next question, Pat. So who's next as far as quarterbacks expecting extension? So we essentially know who's next, who's up in line here, and it is Tua, the aforementioned Trevor Lawrence, Jordan Love, and then Dak Prescott? ? It doesn't even really sound like the Cowboys are that interested in extending Dak at this point.
I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't really know what's going on there with Dak. So we'll just look at these other guys. Yeah, Jared Goff just got $53 million a year. Pat, I think all these guys are going to get more than that. And that's just going to be...
Which is just insane.
Again, a reflection of the market. You could argue to death about, is any player, any quarterback ever worth that? I think, as of right now, I think Jordan Love has the potential to be the biggest return on investment for that, even though we're currently operating off of just a 1-year sample size. But that 1-year sample size was a incredible year where he essentially looked like an Aaron Rodgers clone. And then you're looking at Tua, who has been a limited player throughout his career. He's essentially lefty Jared Goff from a functional standpoint. And then Trevor Lawrence, who I still believe, Pat. I still want to believe.
I want these guys. I want those two to be so good, so badly.
Oh, I want to believe in Trev, man, but it hasn't happened yet. I'm hoping that for whatever reason, Calvin Ridley was just not the fit there, and that, bringing in, I don't want to say his name, Gabe Davis, and Brian Thomas Jr. and operating with those guys as the receivers alongside, obviously, Evan Ingram, Christian Kirk, and then Travis Etienne at running back. Hopefully this is just this is more, what's the word, like, cohesive ingredients for this team. Maybe there was just something with Ridley. The chem just wasn't there, Maybe it'll work out a little better now. But either way, we're still in wait-and-see mode with Trevor. The Jaguars, to their credit, have said they are working very hard to get this extension done, so they are not in any sense trying to move on from him or trying to just let the contract expire. That tends to be what happens anytime a team has a guy who's like top 15 at his position. Like, that team is going to do what they can to lock that guy up, and Trevor absolutely follows that. So, yes, be on the lookout for extensions now coming up. North of $50 million a year for Tua, Trevor, Jordan Love, and Dak. And I actually saw a report on Dak that it was either a scout or an agent. I think it was an agent who said Dak could command 65 to 70 million a year by the time he gets his extension. I'm just like, dear God, what are we doing? Look, Dak's very good. Don't get me wrong, but wow. Okay. More quarterback news, Pat. This happened since our last show, and I just want to touch on it because it makes me chuckle a little bit. Caleb Williams got named the Chicago Bears starter. Thank God. Obviously, Caleb Williams was going to start week 1. But thank you to Matt Eberflus and company for not putting us through the rigmarole of, he's got to compete to get his spot.
What was it, like Tyson Andy Bajan's Dalton was going to start over Bryce Young last year for like 10 minutes?
Yes, that was a thing. I also think back to, ironically enough, Andy Dalton again with the Bears, where he actually did start over Justin Fields for a while. But yeah, why does Andy Dalton just get to be the Grim Reaper of young quarterbacks? He's just like, you have to go through me before you can start. Yeah, we didn't get this with Caleb, and I think it makes total sense, right? Because it's not like Tyson Bagent is some veteran that you need to even feign that respect for. So
it's not like they just paid a guy.
Yeah, I'm glad they just ripped the Band-Aid off and said, guys, we fucking took Caleb Williams first overall. Yeah, he's the starter. So we have not heard that from any of the other quarterback situations. We likely won't for a little while. I mean, the only other obvious day one starter is Jaden Daniels, who, if he doesn't start over Marcus Mariota, I will personally go to FedEx Field and nuke it. So we'll wait and see on the other quarterbacks. Yeah, that's true. But as of right now, Caleb Williams officially named the starter. Pat, the big news from last week. I live streamed during this. Thank you to everyone who came out to that. We got to watch all the schedule release videos together. Some were very good. Some were not so good. But regardless of that, we do have our schedule. And a shout out to the best schedule release videos. Once again, the Chargers, upon my initial watch through, Pat, I didn't like it as much as the anime ones from the past few years. And I still don't think I did, because it wasn't. It had the same level of attention to detail. It just didn't have the same hype level for me. And I'm not even like an anime fanatic. I mean, I've started to watch a little because my girlfriend watches it. But like, I am not personally. I don't have that like.
A girlfriend.
My girlfriend. It's our 2-year anniversary today, by the way. So shout out.
And your dumb ass is sitting here doing this.
I am sitting here talking about the NFL schedule release. Yes. Yeah, the Chargers, they did the Sims one, and it had plenty of detail. And after watching back, it was very funny. There was a lot in there. They actually put Harrison Butker in the kitchen in that video, which was hilarious. And yeah, so much stuff. You kind of almost have to watch that one like frame by frame to really appreciate everything about it.
They called the Raiders garbage.
They called them clowns and sent a link to the Clown Association of America. So
what's the meme where it's like #1 clown, 10 years running?
That's the Raiders. I think it might still be the Raiders, Pat. Sorry to say it. For anyone new and doesn't really know Pat that well yet, our friend Pat here is a Raiders fan, so RIP to Pat. Here's the thing. As of right now, at least, I mean, yes, I have the success of the past few years, my lifetime with the Patriots, but as far as whose team's going to be worse in 2024, Pat, you and I are going to give each other a run for each other's money. Like, I don't know who's going to have a worse record.
Okay.
But it's going to be... It's gonna be a fight, all right. We're gonna win. We're gonna win 7 games, all right. We're gonna win 7 games. That's my prediction. So win more than
Raiders
7.
Raiders are gonna win 12.
Okay. Yeah. Aiden O'Connell MVP. Yes. The other schedule release videos that were good. The Atlanta Falcons did an NFL Street sort of video, which was fire. The animation was awesome. The Tennessee Titans ran it back, doing the kind of man on the street thing. They got the girl that said Red Stallions from last year for the
yes.
Who did she say that for? The Falcons?
Falcons,
right?
yeah.
She said they were the Red Stallions. And so she was going around interviewing people on the street saying, what team is this? The one that always cracks me up, Pat, is the people that so confidently say Cowboys when it's the Colts.
Cowboys.
Every single time. They're like, oh, that's, Dak Prescott, Cowboy. No, it's just. It's
the one that got me good was both times it was the Jaguars. They had two different people say, I don't know who that is.
I know.
It was the Jaguars both times.
It's like, does this team even actually exist? It's a good question. And then the Steelers schedule release video was also very good. They basically had the players read the dad jokes, much like the one I read off the top of the show, and tried to get James Harrison to laugh. And James Harrison was not having it. When the video started, I didn't think it was going to be funny, and then it got really funny, mainly because the dad jokes were funny. A lot of them were like football related and just not jokes I've ever heard before in my life, so they were very good. So shout out to those schedule release videos. But Pat, now that we have the schedule, man, it might be May 21st, but we can look ahead to week 1, and no one's going to stop us, and we're going to do it. So Week 1, notable games. There are a lot of them. First of all, kicking off the season, we've got Ravens at Chiefs. So we've got a Chiefs home game kicking off the season for the second year in a row. Obviously, last year, the Detroit Lions, Pat, made an absolute statement. I mean, Pat, people looked at that game and were like, there's no way the Lions actually pull this off. Like, it's too good of an opportunity for them to actually live up to the hype that they've been building all offseason. And then they won the game. So will the Ravens, look, not that the Ravens are, some up-and-coming team. They just faced the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. But will the Ravens start the Chiefs off with a similar sour note this season and, knock them off? It's definitely a hell of a way to open the year, and I am very, very excited for it. I don't know how
would be far less of a surprise to see the Ravens go and run train on the Chiefs the way the Lions did, but yeah, probably the best, if we're talking two AFC teams to open it with the Chiefs, probably the best matchup they could have gotten, so.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a very exciting game. I saw some people saying, I was hoping for Texans-Chiefs, which would have been lit as well, because that would have been, a pretty similar vibe to Lions-Chiefs from last year. It's like a team that is starting to look really good, still relatively unproven. Can they knock off the champs? But this is I'm not even going to call it a consolation, but this is just a great game to start the year off with. A lot of fantasy-relevant players for those of us that are going to be looking forward to that part of the season, which we absolutely are. And then the second game of the season, night 2, we already knew this one, but just to go over it again, Packers versus Eagles in Brazil, Friday Night Football. Pat, I just love the idea of this because every year it feels like we get that Thursday nighter, and then, it's only a couple days. We got to wait.
Those 2 days are agonizing.
Oh, they're miserable. At this time, we at least get game, and then college football is going on at that point. So, if you like that, great. We're not huge college guys. It's hard to be when you grow up in Connecticut. And
my job ruined it for me.
UConn is trash. But at least you got some college football to watch on that Saturday. And then Sunday, the full slate of the NFL. So, yes, we've got Packers versus Eagles in a game where allegedly neither team's allowed to wear green. Don't really know what's going on there. Don't think that's actually true or going to happen.
Why would they schedule them if they knew?
Well, yeah, for anyone out of the loop, they're playing in a soccer stadium, obviously, in Brazil, where the rival of the home team that plays in that stadium, it wears green. So that stadium essentially has a ban on the color green and even like green accents. So I've seen people say like, the Eagles can wear black and the Packers can wear white. Well, guess what? Both of those uniforms have green accents. So if this is a real ban, that's kind of hard to do anything about.
I'm shocked.
Yeah, it's not going to be a big deal. I'm sure the teams are going to be allowed to wear whichever uniforms. If they want, maybe out of respect, they can wear the white and the black just to minimize the amount of green. But either way, I'm not too concerned about it. So that'll be the second game of the season. And then on the Sunday slate, Steelers at Falcons. Arthur Smith returns to
Revenge
Atlanta.
Game immediately.
I love this. I love the storyline. I love that it's in Atlanta too, because man, Arthur Smith has been through the ringer, the self-sustained, self-appointed ringer, because of how oddly he's managed his teams over the past couple of years. And now he gets to go in with a new team, back in his what's probably a more comfortable role for him in offensive coordinator, and kind of show can he do anything with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields? It's going to be a very interesting game.
And you've got to think he'll probably like hide in the booth. I mean, a lot of offensive coordinators are in the booth, but they will absolutely pan a camera to him sitting in the booth and put that shit on the Jumbotron. You just know that there is going to be a collective Arthur Smith jeer session, as it should be.
Oh, Pat, the absolute anarchy if Arthur Smith leads Russell Wilson or Justin Fields and the Steelers to a win over the new look Falcons on the first game of the season.
Michael Pruitt end-around touchdown to start things from the 1.
Cordero Patterson scores 3 times.
Najee Harris owners cry. Well, you should be crying anyway if you're going to be a Najee Harris owner, so...
Oh man, yeah, I love the tea, Pat, the piping hot tea of that game for week 1. Then you've got, this one's just your typical divisional matchup, but it is going to be fun to see week 1. After not having Anthony Richardson for the most of last season, we've got Texans at Colts to kick off the year. Stroud versus Richardson, the 2 best looking quarterbacks, at least from an on-field perspective. Best looking from a performance and hey, maybe a attraction standpoint from last season. Even though Richardson had limited action, that'll be a hell of a game. I mean, I could see that one being. Look, neither defense is bad, especially the Texans, but that could be one of the more shootout-y games of week 1, just with how explosive both of those offenses are going to be. The Texans offense, I don't know how you stop at this point with how deep they are at every position.
Yeah.
And the Colts offense, if Anthony Richardson's healthy, Anthony Richardson has yet to play with Jonathan Taylor. When that happens for the first time, fireworks. And they've got Michael Pittman, and they drafted A.D. Mitchell, and we don't know how great A.D. Mitchell will be from an instant impact perspective, but he's at least got the chance. So that's going to be a really fun game week 1 as well. Then we've got Rams at Lions. Stafford returns to Detroit once again. Obviously, emotions going to be running high for Stafford as they were the last time he returned to Detroit. And to have this be week 1, it's just another nice way to start the year. Cowboys at Browns on its own, not necessarily a huge deal. You know, Amari Cooper, revenge game, I guess. But it's notable because Tom Brady's first ever broadcast as he sends Greg Olsen to the gulag. This will be a game I will definitely tune into just to hear Tom Brady. And I was like, you know, after thinking about it, I'm probably not really gonna tune into too many games that Brady's calling this year just because I'm a red zone guy, Pat. I assume you are too. For the most part.
You'll see him though. Like you'll get
for
that
sure
fix.
For sure. I mean, we'll get the clips of
the Fox. The lead crew is a lot of 4 o'clock games. Him and Kevin Burkhardt will have. So I imagine that's a window of 3 or 4 games. So we'll probably hear a lot of him. I think he's going to be great personally because I think the problem with a lot of these guys that go right into announcing is sounding forced. Like remember Drew Brees on the NBC pregame show?
Yeah.
Awful. And I'll rattle some feathers here. Tony Romo, not good.
He fell off.
The problem is that the enthusiasm seems very faint. I think Tom Brady can just go out there and be Tom Brady. I mean, you know, he's Tom Brady, so obviously he's going to have great insight, but I think the way he's going to present it is going to be really good too. So I love Greg Olsen. I thought Greg Olsen did a great job. He doesn't necessarily deserve this, but I think Tom's going to be really good at this, and I think he's going to be able to do it for as short or long as he wants to.
Yeah, I mean, Tom's a guy that, like, you know, I've seen commercials with him, and obviously, I mean, I grew up seeing his, like, post-game pressers and stuff, but you don't really know how a guy's going to do in, like, a live setting like that. And honestly, Pat, seeing him at his own roast kind of quelled any concerns I had about his ability to, like, be completely comfortable in that setting. Obviously, I'm not worried about Tom Brady being uncomfortable in his own skin. He's Tom motherfucking Brady. But can he
better be.
Can he project that, you know, in a broadcast setting? And I think after seeing him talk, although it was all scripted stuff for the most part, like, I think he's going to be really good as well. And I think his insights into the game, there's a lot of value to be had there. Hopefully he doesn't get, you know, neutered by the network like so many other insightful analysts have over time. But again, he's Tom Brady, and they're paying him a lot of money. So I assume he's just going to kind of do whatever he wants, and rightfully so. And then finally, Monday Night Football, Jets at 49ers.
Aaron Rodgers' other Achilles has the chance to do the funniest thing.
Putting the Jets back on Monday Night Football immediately is simply the funniest possible thing they could have done. At least it's not at MetLife. It's at the 49ers. But
his family's going to show up, though. They're all out in the Bay Area. That's going to make it even worse.
As I highlighted in a video I made last week, it is against Leonard Floyd, who signed with the 49ers, and Leonard Floyd is the one who tackled Rodgers when he tore his Achilles last year.
Oh, that's right. I completely forgot about that.
Not that was Leonard Floyd's fault by any means, but still, the vibe could definitely be better. He wouldn't have to. Ideally, Rodgers wouldn't have to stand across from the man who he last saw coming at him before his season came to a tragic end. I mean, man went from carrying an American flag onto the field like he was literally Captain America to
like he was literally the running mate of a presidential candidate.
Fuck yeah, that's true. If he tears his Achilles again.
If he tears his Achilles again, he might just run for president.
He's going to immediately try to become president. But that is the highlights of week 1 of the schedule. Obviously, a bunch of great games for the rest of the season as we go, and we will talk about those as they come, probably.
About less than 4.5 months away.
We're getting close, Pat. We're knocking on the doorstep of the season.
Well, we know our draft picks too, don't we?
We do know our draft picks. Yes. So for anybody wondering, Pat and I's fantasy football league, the main one, the one we both take pride in, and the one that I reference basically anytime I talk about anything fantasy football. We know our draft picks now because we determined them through the NIT, whoever could make the best NIT brackets, and now we've selected, based on our draft pick priority, our slots. Pat is officially at number 2, right? Number 2?
Yes.
I have gone big brain and decided...
Yeah, why? What could you have been, 5? Or 6?
No, 7. I could have been 7. So,
and you picked what, 8?
I picked 8.
Why?
Don't question the methodology, Pat. So
again, I'm picking it 2. I'm not going to snipe you.
To further explain it, the way we finished in the NIT bracket pool gives us a priority of which draft pick we want to pick. So Pat had the number 2 selection. He could have picked pick number 12 if he wanted to. So we go down the list. Most of it stays true to form, like whoever was 3rd will pick 3, whatever. I decided to be the first one to go out of order and had the 7th priority and took pick 8 because, Pat, there was a reason. I looked at the not even initial rankings, just a list of players, and decided who I would be okay with as my first round pick. And I identified 8 players that I feel have first round value that I would be happy getting. And so to me, this set me up for a minimally ever so slightly better second round pick. And in a 12-teamer, I have found that having a kind of big 2, if you can form one, is very, very helpful. Honestly, I debated going even further back. I just didn't think there was anybody that I could have gotten in a worst case scenario at 9, 10, or 11 that I would have felt had true first round value. But candidly, what I looked at when I picked number 8 was the guys at the back end of that range were, you've got Justin Jefferson right now. And honestly, Pat, I was looking at the running backs because there's 2 guys that basically round out that top 8. There's Jonathan Taylor and Saquon Barkley. And I would be more than okay with one of those guys as my first round pick. So that was why. And then in the second round, I may be picking from a pool of Garrett Wilson and maybe A.J. Brown versus having that one later pick where one of those guys may have gone just before. So it's a tiny thing, but just a little something I wanted to do.
I have no idea what I'm doing it to.
I don't know what I'm doing.
We've got 4 months. We got 4 months. We know who's going first. The draft starts and ends with me. So I have no idea.
You're taking Bijan. Yeah. Don't be a bitch. Okay, Pat. Over the past couple weeks, we've had OTAs, we've had rookie camp, and out of these things, there has been, a little bit of chatter coming out. Just a couple of rumors that I want to talk about, headlines perhaps. One today that made me laugh. DeAndre Hopkins says that Treylon Burks stinks. Not really, though. So he got asked by a reporter, do you think Treylon Burks is underrated? He said no. He said, how do I say this without it being a negative headline? And he goes, 9. That's German for no. What Hopkins meant, and he clarified after, and I assumed this was what he meant, was the team itself does not believe that Treylon Burks is underrated. The team believes that he is a good player and that they know he's a good player. To to me, Cap, but to me, you got to know how you're coming across. Like, the reporter's asking you, do you think Treylon Burks has more to offer than what he's shown, essentially, is what he's asking. And you say no, like, you lend yourself to this kind of soundbite, even though I know what he meant. Like, obviously, he's not going to completely throw a teammate under the bus like that, but it is what it is. So that was just a funny little thing to come out today. Also in the AFC South, Dalton Schultz talking about the fact that the Texans brought in Stephon Diggs and Joe Mixon. He said that on offense, the Texans have a fully loaded clip. A generally innocuous statement, other than the fact that your teammate got shot a week ago. So he did say...
He goes, we got a lot in the tank here, man. We're going to...
He said we have a fully loaded clip, and then he said, metaphorically speaking. I think he realized what happened. So just a very funny comment from him. Speaking of, Tank Dell's practicing, and he looks pretty good. So this is good. And now that I think of it, it's been 3 weeks since the shooting incident. Tank Dell hoping to end his incredible streak of bad luck to start his NFL career. I mean, gets injured on just the dumbest possible play ever, and then gets shot in the offseason. As I said in a tweet after that happened, he's going to get like mauled by a Bengal tiger next. He's just going to have the most unlucky string of injuries I've ever heard of. So look, hopefully Tank Dell stays healthy, because I'm very excited to see what he can do in a full season. Even with these other weapons in here, I think he is primed for a monster year just because of that connection with C.J. Stroud. I mean, it is undeniable. Pat, a couple weeks ago, as rookie camp started, actually, Mike McCarthy declared a committee backfield. I declare committee. Shocker. Yeah, I know. Big surprise.
That's what happens when everyone in your backfield stinks.
He said that Zeke won't carry it as much as his first go-around with the Cowboys.
I fucking hope not.
I would also hope not. I think he may collapse and die if that were to happen. So, yeah, look, it's officially a committee. From a fantasy football perspective, Pat, this is going to be a fucking nightmare. You got Zeke, you got Rico Dowdle, you got Royce Freeman, you got Deuce Vaughn, who you can put in your pocket. I mean, I don't see any of these guys being consistent on a week-to-week basis until an injury pops up and one of these guys is forced into a bigger role. But yeah, for now, God, it's gross, and it's super
worst
weird.
Backfield in the league. No, I don't even think it's that close.
It's super weird that they're doing this, because this has always been a team that has been like, yeah, our O-line, our run game, and we build everything else off of that. And then last year, especially going into last year, they were like, we got rid of Kellen Moore because he wanted to throw the ball too much, and then they ended up throwing it like more than they ever have. So I think they're going to lean into that even more now, and it makes me, God, love CeeDee Lamb even more in fantasy football now. But yeah, the run game in this backfield, wink. The run game in this backfield are horrifically disgusting, biblically down bad, and I want no part of it.
I'm still just flabbergasted that they did not draft a running back, especially at the values that these guys were going. Absolutely flabbergasted.
I swear Jerry Jones just wanted to like big brain us and be like, you guys all think I'm going to draft a running back. I'm not going to draft a. We got our guys.
Royce Freeman's got something left.
Royce Freeman's got something left. Yeah, that's why every time Kyron Williams was healthy, that guy never saw the fucking field and was a free agent until that point. All right. One thing we know about Zeke is he is going to have a role, at least some kind of role. Javonte Williams, on the other hand, a hot name in fantasy football the last couple of years, not guaranteed a role. I wrote McVay here. I didn't mean to write McVay. I don't know why I wrote McVay. Sean Payton was very non-committal on the backfield roles here in Denver, and essentially said that every back is going to be working for playing time, competing for playing time. And, sounds like generic coach speak stuff, but when you've got a guy like Jaleel McLaughlin, who popped up randomly last year as an undrafted free agent and had some really productive fantasy weeks, and who was mentioned by name by Sean Payton when he was talking about his backfield, and he did not mention Javonte Williams. It definitely makes me, I think, a lot more interested in Jaleel McLaughlin than Javonte, at least in terms of where they're both ranked.
Yeah, I was never a big Javonte guy coming into the year. I mean, he was one of those guys last year that you kind of just forgot existed. He played I think he played 16 games. Yeah, he played 16 of 17 games. So he was out there, but I felt like you just never heard about him. I know they kind of stunk offensively for most of the year, but let's see. I got his football reference page up here. Yeah, I mean, 774 yards and 3 touchdowns in 16 games. That is not fantastic.
It's not great.
That's 3.6 yards per carry. That is not good. And if Sean Payton thinks that offense is going to pop with either Jarrett Stidham or Bo Nix, good luck, brother. But
yeah.
He probably sees Javonte Williams as a guy that is not going to be part of that.
It's look, Javonte Williams is a guy that I hold pretty close to my heart because I drafted him in the
second round. Say it.
The second round 2 years ago. Oh man, my first 3 picks were Justin Jefferson, Javonte Williams, and Kyle Pitts. That was a bad year. I think my 4th round pick was Gabe Davis. Yeah, not a good year for me.
It was.
I think my 5th round pick was Juju Smith-Schuster. I'm looking forward eventually, or I was looking forward eventually to a Javonte Williams breakout. I am losing hope that that's going to happen. If for no other reason, then it sounds like Sean Payton's losing hope. Like, as much as Javonte may have something left to offer, I don't know how much he's going to be given the chance to offer it. So I think it's a case where I would love to see him get a lot of work. I feel like he might not. I mean, you're bringing in Audric Estime as well from the draft. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And it's just going to be a case where Javonte may – not Samaje P. Ryan. May just be a case where it's hard to find some work. Is he on the team? Samaje P. Ryan
is, yeah.
Is he really? There's no way. Is he? Oh, my God.
Is he not?
Hell, him and his beard. No, he is. You're right. I just looked it up. Jesus, man. Okay. Anyway, yeah, Javonte not looking good for this season. Jaleel McLaughlin maybe to the moon as an undrafted free agent. And then one more running back note. Brian Callahan is high on Tyjae Spears. Tony Pollard, maybe not as much. So he keeps calling these guys basically 1A and 1B. That's how he's referring to both of these backs. And he keeps talking about how excited he is to use Tyjae Spears in different ways in the screen game and the option game, whatever you may have. And we're at the point, Pat, where on Underdog Fantasy average ADP, Tyjae Spears is RB38, Tony Pollard is RB27.
Insanity.
I feel pretty comfortable saying those should be flipped.
I agree.
With what Tony Pollard showed us last year, which was nothing, and granted, he is an extra year off of the injury and off of recovery.
He did
that
start to look a little better at the end of the year.
A little better. That gets overblown, too. People are like, oh, he came on at the end of last year. I'm like, show me a game where he ran over 70 yards. I don't think it happened. So, I guess he felt a little better and maybe got slightly better. But Tyjae Spears is a guy that we were looking forward to having a major role in this backfield when Derrick Henry announced that he was leaving in free agency. Then they signed Tony Pollard, and we're like, what the hell's going on? Pat, to me, this is almost let the Tony Pollard signing be your way of getting Tyjae Spears a lot cheaper than you were going to get him otherwise.
Yeah. And not to say that I'm like completely out on Tony Pollard either, but I think Tyjae Spears, like you said, the option game, the screen game, I feel like he's just a lot more versatile than Tony Pollard, who granted is a good pass catcher himself. We saw it 2 years ago. That's where a ton of his value came from 2 years ago when he broke out. And but yeah, I like Spears better. I think a lot of it is name recognition at the moment, but they were willing to let Derrick Henry walk. I mean, granted, he was going to be really expensive and he's aging, but still, you're letting the face of your franchise walk. You've got to have faith in Tyjae Spears, and there were a lot of games last year where they had a lot more faith in him than Derrick Henry because of game script. But I certainly like Spears, and at these prices here, where they're going, I think that's a great value.
At these prices, man, it is like Bob's Discount Furniture over here. Bob's Discount Running Backs, Tyjae Spears is first on the menu. All right. Now, like I said before, we're going to get into our divisional fantasy previews. And, Pat, I've got a little intro for these segments now. So let's get into the fantasy.
You going to remember to do them?
Portion. Look, we're on a new channel now. It's a new beginnings here at Brand Coverage. Yes, I'm going to remember. All right. Ready?
Fulfill your fantasy.
What the fuck?
That was all. That was just Kermit singing Fulfill Your Fantasy. I don't even know what song that is. But I figured it was a good way to
I hated that.
Oh, you hated
Fulfill your fantasy.
What's the problem? I see no issue. That is going to be...
This did not go through the committee.
This is a dictatorship. I don't know what you think this is. For anybody listening, that is going to be our signification that we are talking about fantasy football. We've already been talking about it now with the last couple bullet points, but this is officially diving in to the divisional fantasy football previews. And this week, we are starting with the AFC East. I don't really know what made me pick the AFC East. I think it's just that the Patriots are in it.
Patriots.
I told Pat, look, yeah, the Patriots and all of their relevant fantasy players, of which there are maybe 0.5.
There's one. Yeah, that was an ugly look for them.
It's bad. And look, for anybody that thinks it's too early to start prepping for fantasy football because it's May 21st, you have a loser mentality and you're incorrect. Get a jump on your teammates, all right? Or excuse me, on your league mates, and prep now. Just listen to our soothing voices tell you who to draft, and you'll be better off, all right? We're very soothing. We're like, I don't know, who's soothing? Who's just like a jazz musician?
Josh Groban.
Michael
Bublé.
Yes, we are the Michael Bublés of fantasy football. Just listen to us and get a bubble bath going or something. All right, we'll start with the Buffalo. That is definitely the connection my brain made, and I didn't mean to do that. I was thinking like the type of music is like romantic, so you go bubble bath. But yeah, that's definitely what happened.
Yeah, that was not intentional? Oh, God. All right,
no, it wasn't.
Buffalo Bills.
Buffalo Bills. Okay, so here's the story on the Bills from last year. They fired Ken Dorsey midseason and promoted Joe Brady to offensive coordinator. They lost Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis in free agency, which frees up 241 targets in the passing game. Where the fuck are those targets going to go? We'll talk about that in a second, Pat, but let's start with the quarterback position, as we will with all these teams. Josh Allen, QB1 on Underdog, QB1 I think in most places after the season he had last year, and it makes sense. I think it's probably the right ranking for him. I just will caution against expecting him to do what he did last year because those 15 rushing touchdowns were kind of out of nowhere. And it's a little difficult to balance what part of that is like repeatable this year and what part of that we can maybe attribute to, Joe Brady taking over. Because here are some notes that I have just to give some perspective. First of all, 8 touchdowns in 7 games with Joe Brady, including all 4 of his 9+ carry games. All of those came with Joe Brady. Before Brady took over for Dorsey, he had 7 rushing touchdowns in 10 games. So more games, less touchdowns, fewer carries overall. Was this a direct result, the increased running, of the Dorsey firing? Was this a result of just Josh Allen going fuck it mode at the end of the year because they needed him to? They needed some hero ball? I don't know. All I know is that Josh Allen had 15 rushing touchdowns and he's never surpassed more than 9 in any other season. Now 9 is still very nice, but that chunk right there is the reason Josh Allen had like 40 points on the next highest scoring quarterback in fantasy. He's not going to have that big of a gap this year, I don't think. And my initial thought on those rushing touchdowns was, he took a bunch more from the running backs as opposed to what he did in 2022. That's not the case. Like the backfield, the actual running back touchdowns in 2023 for the Bills, they had 7. In 2022, they had 8. So it wasn't like they had a bunch less this year from the running backs and that Josh Allen was just stealing them. This was just a weirdly high year for Josh Allen rushing touchdowns. And when you see a year like that, it's generally a good bet to not think it's going to stay that way. But I still think he's probably the QB1.
Yeah, I would say the only other guy that I would even think would be the QB1 is Lamar, but obviously similar profiles here. But I think with Allen, just as much of a gunslinger as we've seen him to be, in addition to that running value, is huge. Is huge. And this is going to be a theme here, but Bran knows this. I love punting the quarterback position. I love taking a QB late if I can. This year is a phenomenal year.
It is,
in my opinion, to wait on a quarterback. So while I say, yes, Josh Allen is the QB1, and I think he's going to have a huge year, and if I had to pick a quarterback first, I'd pick Josh Allen, but I'm not going to. And it's not necessarily an indictment of him. It's just more so the fact that I think there are going to be some really good values, possibly in this division, that we will talk about. But yeah, I just worry about the rushing touchdowns too, just because, like you said, they can kind of fluctuate. Like you get 15 one year, who knows? He could have 8 which again,
that's
really
generally
good,
what he has. He has like 7, 8, or 9 really basically every year. Yeah,
and I think it's fair to say that he will fall off a little bit, but I just don't think anybody has really seized the opportunity. Like I said, I think Lamar is probably in like a throwing distance from him, but besides that,
I think if you're looking at anyone to kind of swipe that QB1, if there's any other players that could do it, I think Mahomes could definitely reclaim his crown.
Of course.
Depending on,
just doesn't have the rushing side.
No, correct. I mean, he's got a little bit, but yeah, it's more of that like prime Aaron Rodgers rushing upside, where it's like a couple will get tacked on here and there. But Mahomes is not going to have generationally bad receivers this year like he did last year that buoyed his fantasy value down so much. Will he have Rashee Rice? I don't know, but he's going to have at least Hollywood Brown and whatever Xavier Worthy's going to offer this year. If he gets Rashee Rice for, the last 13 games of the season after a 4-game suspension or whatever it is, that's going to be plenty to give him that QB1 upside. And if there's anyone else I want to give outside QB1 upside to, it's Anthony Richardson.
Damn it, I thought I was going to have a hot take. God damn it.
Look, that guy runs so much, and he's the kind of guy that he hasn't had his prove it year yet. Like when you look for these guys that have like otherworldly upside, it's the ones who aren't necessarily trying to save their own best interest yet, because they're trying to establish themselves in the league first. And he is the kind of guy that's like, I need to have my I'm here season, and this could obviously be that season.
And the thing too is like, obviously we saw Gardner Minshew in that Shane Steichen offense. So obviously you gotta tamper things down because of Gardner Minshew's skill set. Anthony Richardson's skill set compared to that is leaps and bounds. I think Shane Steichen's a great offensive mind, and I think they're going to really be able to open up the playbook. I'm not saying he's going to be the QB1, but like, I wouldn't be blown away if he was either.
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility. Moving over to the running backs here in Buffalo, Pat, James Cook on underdog average. So, by the way, guys, for the reason we're referencing underdog ADP is because Underdog has actually been having drafts for the psychopaths that love to do best ball drafts just year-round, basically, both before and after the NFL draft. So this gives you some data of how people are actually drafting these players, and it will fluctuate plenty from now until August.
Is Underdog legal in Colorado?
No, I don't think so.
It's not legal. It's not legal here either.
Wait, I don't remember. I think the drafts might be. I don't think the other stuff is, because I think
last August I went to Massachusetts and did a best ball draft just because that was my best opportunity.
Feel something. Yeah, no, I get that. But yeah, this is going off of actual, like, the way people are drafting these players versus looking at ESPN rankings that are not necessarily predicated off of actual ADP yet, which, for example, have Marvin Harrison as like the 35th overall player, which is fucking insane. He's not going to be that low. Yes, and it is a different format, which is also going to skew these a little bit, but either way, it's a decent jumping off point.
Yes, I feel like it's the best one to look at this point.
Yeah, at this point in May. So yeah, James Cook right now on Underdog is RB13. He finished as RB11 last year, so right around the right place, I guess. And then you've got the other running back, rookie Ray Davis at RB48. I think James Cook is basically in a PPR league, Pat, which now thankfully we are. I mean, he's about as safe of a running back as you can draft, right?
All aboard.
Right? Yeah, like he's got such a clear role in such a good offense that it's awesome value at RB13.
And especially we saw his workload just explode once Joe Brady became offensive coordinator. Like I'm trying to find his overall ADP here, but I imagine it is going to make me like vomit with how low it is. But this is backwards, that's why. But it doesn't really matter. But yeah, RB13, you've got to imagine that's probably like round 3 or 4, which is insane. And he's got the passing value, and it's like there is no Damian Harris or Latavius Murray to take carries away. That made me sick from James Cook. Ray Davis will get some work, I'm sure, but there's no established guy at the goal line. I think they are going to let James cook, and I think he is going to finish significantly higher than RB13.
Yeah, so James Cook, ADP on Underdog overall right now is 53.6. So yes,
it's round 5.
Yeah, in a 12-teamer even, that is round 5.
It's like dead zone territory. What the fuck?
Yeah. He's right above. The guys he's directly above are Rashad White, Joe Mixon, and Kenneth Walker, which...
that should be illegal.
He should definitely be above those guys. Guys, he's below Isaiah Pacheco, Travis Etienne, Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry. In a PPR league, arguably, I like James Cook more than those guys. I mean,
Definitely Henry and Jacobs, yeah.
Yeah, Derrick Henry has a chance to go nuclear this year in that Ravens offense. But again, I'm not drafting a running back whose age starts with a 3. Generally speaking, we'll get to one who's an exception, and it's pissing me off right now in the next team we talk about. But generally, not drafting a running back whose age starts with a 3. So, yeah, James Cook, definitely a screaming value right now. Ray Davis, not a guy I'm banking on really seeing anything from this year. Definitely has a chance to poach some of those goal line touchdowns as a bit of a stockier guy.
He'll be a waiver wire darling kind of guy. Yeah, he'll be in the waiver wire columns every week.
Right, and James Cook's going to mess up a knee at some point, and here comes Ray Davis. Yeah, I know, you're right. Sorry, not a knee. Maybe he'll sprain his toe or something. I don't know.
That's not good either.
Right, it might be worse. Receiver-wise, Keon Coleman gets brought in. He is currently the wide receiver 40 on Underdog. Ton of value to be had there. And then you've got Curtis Samuel, wide receiver 49, Khalil Shakir, wide receiver 54, and that's their main receivers. Everyone here is catching passes from Josh Allen. Stephon Diggs was a wide receiver 1 for years with Josh Allen, and then Gabe Davis would occasionally throw in some wide receiver 2 production
he was a
for
wide
you.
Receiver 1.
So, somebody's going to emerge here to the point where the fact that their ADP starts with a 4 is ridiculous. They're in the 40s. Keon Coleman, Pat, I might be all in.
We talked a lot about him last time when we did the rookie draft. Yeah,
it's just such an exciting ceiling for the guy.
He is, of those 3, he is kind of the only traditional outside wide receiver. I like Khalil Shakir a lot. Our wide receiver 54 is nuts. Mm-hmm. But, he's more of a slot guy. And Curtis Samuel is kind of more of his gadget guy. They're all going to see work. But at the end of the day, who's Josh Allen going to be chucking the ball to for a jump ball? It's going to be Keon Coleman. In the red zone, he's going to be throwing the ball to Keon Coleman more so. Well, there's somebody else as well, but I think though, that's so what he's a wide receiver. That's a wide receiver 4 then technically at 40. That is
psychotic.
Yeah, and I do think his stock is,
but still,
but I do have a feeling his stock will rise significantly because I think people kind of get on this notion, maybe see some training camp videos of him, but the big question is just who's it going to be? Because I guess now we can lump in Dalton Kincaid, who is tight end 4. I love Dalton Kincaid.
I do too.
He is my favorite Bills pass catcher. Even more so than Keon Coleman.
100%.
I love Dalton Kincaid. They drafted him last year knowing that they had Dawson Knox. They obviously had a plan for him. He came on at the end of the year, but losing Stephon Diggs is the perfect opportunity for Dalton Kincaid to be one of the focal points in your offense, possibly the focal point of your passing game. Mm-hmm. A quick tight end matchup problem. I hate that he's tight end 4 because I wish he was a little lower. But I think, especially at a tight end position where, tight end is deeper than ever. I've said that the last 5 years and looked like an ass every time. But I'll say it again. Year. Play the hits. The tight end position is deeper than ever. But I love Dalton Kincaid. I love Dalton Kincaid there, man.
Yeah, Dalton Kincaid is part of the reason that I don't think the Khalil Shakir breakout is coming, because you get to a point where Josh Allen's already poaching so many touchdowns with his legs. Even if he comes down from the 15 and goes back to his usual 7, 8, 9, whatever it is, he's already poaching a bunch of those scoring opportunities with his legs. Then you've got in the passing game, Dalton Kincaid, presumably Keon Coleman is going to be a bit more of a focus than Khalil Shakir, at least once he gets going. And it's just how much is left for Khalil Shakir when you're also using James Cook in the passing game too. So I love the guy as a player. I just think the Bills are continuing to treat him like a guy they drafted in the 5th round, and they're not really trying to expose him any more than he is. He's going to continue, making, like you said, waiver columns all the time. He's going to flash the upside one week, and Keon Coleman's going to have 2 catches for 20 yards, and people are going to be like, "Oh, here comes Khalil." And I don't think it's going to materialize.
There's also the possibility that Keon Coleman takes a little while to get it, fully incorporated into that offense. 100%. So I think there's a good chance that if Khalil Shakir is going to do something, it's going to be at the beginning of the year. And all those games count. Those games count.
Right.
Those wins are just the same. Obviously, you want to build towards the end of the season, but in wide receiver 54, I think even with a very fair point that you just made, I still think that's a good value.
Yeah, I think that's it's potentially a good value if he's going to be the guy that explodes early in the year. I just think, Pat, there's also a chance that that's Curtis Samuel, which is the infuriating part of it. We've seen Curtis Samuel have productive stretches as well. And Pat,
in two places.
You want to know how old Curtis Samuel is? Do you know how old
28.
Curtis Samuel is?
Is he like
27. 27, yeah. He's even younger than we would think. Like, I know you
that man is our age.
Yeah, I know, but he's a boomer for football almost. But no, 27, it feels like he's been around for so long, and then it's just he just hasn't found a real home yet. And I'm not expecting a lot from him either. I just think he could be that guy that's super relevant for the first couple weeks. That we'll just have to wait and see. Moving on to the Miami Dolphins, Pat. Your favorite player of all time, Tua Tagovailoa, QB14.
Tua let me down, man.
Tua, was he one of your pals last year?
He was my pal. And granted, he had a decent year. But he was not pal worthy. He started the year pal worthy. He was the MVP front runner for a portion of the year last year, which was insane. Which was insane. Even more insane than Dak Prescott for a minute as well, but Tua, and like I said, with Tua and same Trevor Lawrence is just so frustrating because he has all the pieces around him to succeed. A phenomenal running game behind him. Tyreek Hill, arguably the best wide receiver in the game. I'd say at the very least top 3. And Jalen Waddle, who is a great young up-and-coming player who has shown great flashes. Jonnu Smith, but he has all the pieces around him to succeed. Mike McDaniel is another one of these Kyle Shanahan disciples. Very creative. He'll do whatever it takes. And it's just that Tua's just not good enough to be that guy. The ceiling is there, but his skill is what caps the ceiling short of that for me. And I don't think it has to be that way, but it's just so frustrating. To watch him sometimes. What is he going? Is QB what?
You have him as QB 14 from Underdog.
I think that's still a fair. If you're going to wait on quarterback, you could do a lot worse than Tua at QB 14.
I think you could do better too. I think there's guys that have shown or that theoretically have a little more of a ceiling than Tua does at this point. Because now we know who he is fully. To me,
unfortunately,
now.
yeah.
And Tua is a guy who I'm looking at his game logs here. Through the first, even through the first 8 weeks of the season, there were some duds. You got 10 against the Eagles, 13 against, almost 14 against the Bills, 12 against the Patriots. He just drops these duds. And then week 11 through 18, the guy surpassed 15 points twice. And one of them was 15.5.
That's gross. That's gross.
Or excuse me, 3 times. There's another 17er in there. But the guy was not touching 20 most of the time, not even close.
And so I feel like 18 to 20 is
you need
the very least, the bare minimum here for
you're definitely looking for that if it's going to be a guy you're going to be happy with. Tua's just he's not that guy, and I don't think he's that guy for real life either. I
think he's a better fantasy quarterback than real life just because of the pieces he has around him. But
yeah, he's going to be a guy that when he gets that extension, I'm going to throw up a little bit in my mouth, I think.
And I think that part of this reason here is why he has these quiet games is this running game is so fucking good.
It sure is.
They have, what's the Mark Twain quote? The rumors of my death have been greatly exaggerated. We were kind of exaggerating on Raheem Mostert's downfall last year, basically saying the injury risk was too much. And my God, was he fantastic. And at a great value, too, because the big worry, I think, was more so fucking Jeff Wilson. Wilson, with some Devon Achane, thinking that he'd get incorporated eventually. But it was when, I drafted him in one league, and it was the day that Jeff Wilson kind of got banged up.
Something. Yeah.
And I got him in, the 11th round. He was one of the, what did he finish like? He was a top 5, right?
Mostert was RB2.
See, like, that's insane. Yeah. But again, like, I feel like you gotta, bring up the same talking points. He was very healthy last year. He's 32 years old. He's 32 years old, and when he was with San Francisco, he had a pretty significant injury history, or at least, these kind of ticky-tack injuries that kind of keep you out a little bit. It's just that I think they're going to incorporate them both, but I think Devon Achane is just such a better running back. Such a younger player, such a more valuable player. I don't want to say I'm out on Mostert, because say Achane gets hurt again, we're looking at Mostert as one of these guys gets hurt, the other is a league winner all year long. The other guy will win you games week in and week out if one of these two guys gets hurt.
Okay. Here's my thing with Raheem Mostert, and he is the player I was talking about when I said I would never draft a running back whose age starts with 3. Except this one. Raheem Mostert, and this is not just because he was amazing for me last year and was the entire reason I was able to survive Nick Chubb going down in week 2 or whatever it was for the season. Pat, Raheem Mostert just scored 18 touchdowns in a season. Raheem Mostert was just the fantasy RB2. For all intents and purposes, Raheem Mostert's situation didn't change. Devon Achane's still here. They drafted Jalen Wright. Maybe Jalen Wright proves us wrong now and is this year's Achane and is the third guy on the depth chart.
I drafted him with my last pick in a dynasty.
As you probably should.
Pick, yeah.
And maybe he ends up being relevant because he is a perfect prototype for this backfield. He fits in seamlessly if one of these guys gets hurt or whatever. They cloned another one of them. They have a bunch of fast running backs. But Raheem Mostert just scored 18 touchdowns. He's in the same situation, and he's not going away. I don't understand the RB29 tag for him on
RB29 right is that's wild.
That's all I'm saying.
Wild.
I'm not out here advocating for him to be a top 10 drafted running back, but RB29. And then I went over to ESPN's rankings just to see, where he is on a site that just ranked players and not, going off of best ball ADP. He's like RB31 over there, and I'm just like, 18 touchdowns. He's on the same team he did it with almost the same competition. Like, yes, obviously I would prefer Devon Achane this year, but is it going to surprise me if Raheem Mostert's out there for the first snap for the Dolphins this year? No. Is it going to surprise me if he and Achane work in tandem like the way we kind of envisioned him and Wilson to last year? No. Like, I know. This is a guy that, like, I just can't understand that low of a... If he was RB...
15
19 20, even that I might find some value there, but I would understand it a little more.
Yeah.
But because I get it, he's older, there's a running back here we think is going to break out and jump him at some point, maybe as soon as week 1. Maybe Achane is the guy out there for the first snap of the year, but like they just signed Mostert to an extension too, 2 years, $9 million to sign him through 2025. He's not going anywhere. I mean, he may not be the more exciting of the two options, but like this is a guy that, both these guys are predicated on speed. They're going to work them both in because otherwise using just one of them doesn't work as well. I don't get it. I think he's massively, massively underrated. And at this point, it's like, what does the guy have to do to get some respect in fantasy football other than turn the clock back 5 years so he can be 27? Even 27 is too old for some people. So I don't know. I just think he's an amazing value right now.
29 is insane. Like, that's not even a guy, like, when you draft a guy at RB29, that's not even a guy that, like, you're thinking about touching in your starting lineup.
Yeah.
We're still talking Raheem Mostert. And I think if any team in this league is equipped to have 2 fantasy relevant running backs, it's probably the Dolphins. We saw it for games last year. That offense is high flying. They love to run the ball when they get down to the 2 and the 1 yard line.
Yep.
So...
yeah, there's so much value there right now that I can't understand why he's ranked. So I hope his value, I hope his value doesn't climb so I can get Raheem Mostert at a value for the 15th time in my fantasy career. Let me have him. Moving on to the running backs here, Pat. Tyreek Hill, wide receiver 2, and Jalen Waddle, wide receiver 19. I love the value for Jalen Waddle. I think.
Agreed.
Look, last year was a bad year for him. Obviously, injuries on and off, banged up. Not as many touchdowns as he had. But in the year before that, Pat, same offense, wide receiver 7 in 2022. This is still a young player. Just one of these guys that I think is going to get recency biased to hell. Like, people are going to convince themselves that Jalen Waddle is this injury-prone, like not worth the pick type of player. And it's like, no, as much as the Dolphins have this great run game, like they're going to sling it too. Tyreek's going to take plenty of attention. Jalen Waddle has not gotten any extra target competition added to this team. So I love the value for him. Even though he was wide receiver 31 last year, wide receiver 7 in 2022.
I think that's the big thing is that we are, we just talked about how high flying this offense is, how good this offense is, how many points they put up. They have 2 real targets out there in terms of non-running backs. And obviously, like, what else do they have? River Craycraft?
The 2 guys they drafted.
God forbid Odell Beckham. Do not pick Odell Beckham under any circumstances. I tried to tell you last year. I'm like, Zay Flowers all the way. And what happened? Zay Flowers all the way. But
listen, all right, I tried.
God forbid. And then don't even Jonnu Smith and Durham Smythe. No competition from the tight end position either. I love both of these guys. And obviously Tyreek is just amazing. Like, I feel like you watch a Dolphins game and you just see it's basically like Tyreek out there somewhere, and he just chucks it up. I got him at the 12th pick last year in our league. Granted, non-PPR, would not have made it there in a PPR league, but like I got him at 12th. Unbelievable value. Is he the wide receiver 1 overall? I think no. I think I'd give that to CD Lamb, but I think he is clearly the wide receiver 2. And, he is a guy who, at the very least, will probably go in the top 4 of your drafts. But I agree that the main focus here is just Waddle because that's crazy. That's crazy. And, I owned a lot of Jalen Waddle last year, and it was so frustrating. But it was never like, oh, I'm done with this guy. Like, oh, this guy is no good. We know what kind of talent he brings to the table. And like I said, there is such little target competition in an offense that just loves to chuck the ball and just loves to, prides themselves in their offense. I think 19 is. I think that's crazier than Mostert being 29. I'll be honest.
Yeah, I could understand that. I'm looking at where he's at on ESPN as well. Oh man, wide receiver 22 on ESPN. Man. That is, the guys he's behind, well, I think I'd rather him than Devonta Smith at this point. Those 2 guys are just linked in forever. Then DJ Moore is probably a little too low. I'd rather have him than Stephon Diggs. I'd rather have him than Deebo Samuel. I'd rather have him than Brandon Ayuk, DK Metcalf, Nico Collins, Drake London. Yep. I think it stops for me at Marvin Harrison. I'd rather have Marvin Harrison, but that's a me thing.
Yes,
I understand it's
a
rookie.
Sure.
But,
that's definitely at least where you pause. That's the pause in that conversation.
We're definitely a little bit underrated here for Waddle. And Pat, as far as Tyreek Hill goes, this is a do as I say, not as I do moment. I'm not drafting Tyreek Hill anywhere, and this is a thing. Really? This is a thing that I understand I'm wrong. I will not draft a speed-based receiver who is now 30 years old. I won't do it.
I think he's more than that, though.
No. I understand that. Yeah. He is more than that, but drafting a receiver with a first-round fantasy pick who is in his 30s, like, it just something about it rubs me the wrong way. And I'm not telling you guys not to do it. You guys should probably take Tyreek Hill with a top 5 pick if you have the chance to do so. There's a part of me, Pat, that is extremely ageist when it comes to fantasy football. You know this.
But I will say,
there's other guys I'd rather.
That's what gives CD the edge in my eyes in terms of the wide receiver 1. So, like, the point is not, is not this completely crazy thing. But, even on games where he doesn't catch a deep ball, I feel like, the games where he would go and catch this deep, crazy pass, it was basically just like, there's a phrase, I can't think of it. Oh God, but it's like when something's extra, like, fuck. All right, it's
extraneous.
Good. No, there's like a phrase. I'm fucking cooked. But yeah,
it's late over there on the East Coast.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. But I understand. I understand. But like we said, there's nobody else to talk about. It's crazy in an offense this good to only talk about 5 guys and mention Jalen Wright's name as well. as a guy that I think if there's an injury to one of those two guys will have a very big role. It might take a little time, like it happened to Achane, but for an offense to be this good with only really 5 guys mentioned, crazy. But it's correct. Like it's
nice to have it that consolidated as a fantasy drafter. You know who you're going after. You don't have to worry about a lot of ambiguity in the
exactly like the Bills. The Bills was all ambiguity. All ambiguity. Patriots is all ambiguity, but you don't even want to look in that direction. I guess we can, unless there's anything else to say about the Dolphins, we can move on here to the Patriots. The big question is, who is the... I had the Jets before them. We'll do the Patriots anyway. I messed up my own order.
We're fine.
Messed up my own order. The big question, obviously, is going to be who is the starting quarterback there. The way it's being drafted, obviously, is best ball. So these people are probably expecting Drake May to play a good chunk of the year. So that's why he's QB 28. Jacoby Brissett is QB 50. Is QB 50.
I mean...
I'm not drafting him, regardless. He is not a guy that's on my radar. Like I said, this is such a deep year at the quarterback position. Taking Jacoby Brissett, or Drake May, for that matter, in a redraft league is not even close to being on my mind. Like, I had a list here of of 24 quarterbacks, and I don't even think I considered putting Brissett on that list.
QB 50 is so
hilarious.
It's so funny. QB 50 is hilarious for a guy who's probably starting week 1. Like, that's objective.
I'm going to say it. I'm not going to say that he won't. I just don't think he should. I think they should let Drake May.
You think they should let Drake go from week 1? Really? Okay. Absolutely. I haven't heard that much.
Show some confidence in the guy that you drafted 3rd overall. And I understand Brissett's a great Brissett is kind of perennially, him and Gardner Minshew, like the best backups in the league. I think they should have some faith, but otherwise, this team stinks. This offense stinks. The defense is very good. So, you said 7 wins. I'm not going to go that far. I'm not going to... Oh, no. Here we go. I'm not going to go that far. But from a fantasy perspective, I mean, I guess talk about the wide receivers here. Jalen Polk, wide receiver 69. Nice. Demario Douglas, wide receiver 82. And Kendrick Bourne, wide receiver 99.
Yeah.
And that's all justified. Because not only do we know if, which one of these guys is going to break out, do we know if any of them are? I think there's a realistic chance, again, that they do not have, that their most relevant fantasy pass catcher is Hunter Henry. Mm-hmm. Who I also am not a fan of this year, again. So it's we talk about it with the Bills, who's going to emerge? Do any of these guys emerge?
Yeah, it's kind of a fuck if I know question. Look, I think the offense as a whole, under Drake May, is going to have a lot more upside, obviously. Brissett, it's capped. Sure. You know what Brissett is. And Drake May, there's a chance that he leads the offense to maybe support a couple of weapons, outside of your Ramondre Stevenson's, he's going to be relevant just based on a volume role alone. I do think a receiver will break out and become a flex-worthy player throughout the course of the season, but damned if I know who it is.
I was going to say who you got. Gun to your head right now, who you got?
Gun to my head right now, Jalen Polk. I think it would be Jalen Polk. He's the more reliable possession receiver build. Javon Baker has the highest upside of any receiver on this depth chart, and we don't even have him listed here. I think his ADP on Underdog is actually better than both, or at least better than Bourne's. I think it's better than Bourne's. It might be better than Douglas, but that's just because he's a rookie and people have rookie fever.
Very well put it past me to forget him.
Javon Baker may not play that much, at least not right off the bat. But I think, Polk is the guy that, in a PPR league, I could see being Drake May or even Jacoby Brissett's, security blanket, just the guy they pepper with targets. Javon Baker's the one that we are kind of hoping
wide receiver
becomes,
85.
Yeah. Okay, so below Douglas, but above Bourne. Baker's the guy that we're hoping can become our big play, actual touchdown scoring receiver, but just don't necessarily know if that's going to translate week 1 or year 1 even for Javon. Gun to my head, I'd say Jalen Polk, but I understand if you want to just go elsewhere with your late round dart throws than the Patriots. I understand. I'll probably take one just because homerism and it's fun. I'll probably end up with some Polk and some Baker on my team.
That's a fair dart to take at the end of drafts, though.
Yeah,
absolutely. Why not?
I mean, it's a team with no clear number one target. You might as well, and maybe you stumble into a guy who's going to get 100 targets this year, and you don't know that.
Can we stop it with Kendrick Bourne? Like every year,
I know.
He has some ability, but like every year it's like, there's 2 weeks where Kendrick Bourne like has 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, and everyone's,
I know.
You know,
he was hurt last year. He was like good in spurts last year, but he was hurt for most of it. I mean, he had week 1 where it was 64 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Eagles, and we were like, oh, watch out.
Yeah, exactly.
And then he went 4 straight weeks below 50 yards. But then you have to factor in, Pat, Mac Jones isn't the quarterback anymore. So like it's a matter of who's on the field for this team. I don't know who's going to earn a receiving role. For all I know, the receivers week 1 very well could be and maybe likely will be Kendrick Bourne and Demario Douglas along with Hunter Henry at tight end. Maybe these rookies don't get a bunch of burn off the bat. Juju is also on this team, I think, allegedly. So like, yeah, the receiver room is super messy.
Oh, no.
And Drake May is purely a dart throw. The running backs are where you're going to find your value with Ramondre Stevenson. He is currently at RB20 on Underdog. I think there's plenty of room. There's plenty of room for him to outpace that, but that's also maybe just the right range because of the offense in general's projection.
Mid-range, low-end RB2. I just don't know what to expect from this Alex Van Pelt offense. See, like every time I think of the Patriots, I just think like, oh, it's going to be the same old song and dance, but it's like they're gone. Like.
The Alex Van Pelt offense allowed Joe Flacco to be fantasy relevant and a fantasy weapon, might I add. At the end of the year.
Exactly. So it's like, I don't really know what to expect, but just from a volume perspective, because you know what? Fine, I'll be the one to say it. Antonio Gibson is bad. Like
you're very brave, Pat. You're very brave.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. But he is not good. Some decent receiving upside there, but. In terms of carries, Ramondre's going to get, the first down carries. He's going to get the short yardage carries. He's going to get the goal line carries. At RB20, that's a very solid floor, I think, for a guy who's going as low as he is. Does he have the ceiling of some of these guys we just talked about? No, I don't think so.
If the Patriots pull a Texans, then yes, but barring that, no.
If it is Jacoby Brissett, I think that kind of does get limited a little bit. Does get limited a little bit. That's a lot. That's a tough thing to say, but yeah, like I'm not like super enthusiastic to draft Ramondre Stevenson, but if you kind of go 0 RB and wait until that dead zone range, I think he's real solid.
I would agree. And then, Pat, we can move on to the New York Jets, who have maybe the most speculative team out of all. And now the Patriots are probably more. We have no fucking idea what this is going to look like. But the Jets are the one that have a ton of fantasy upside here. It's like a volcano that's waiting to erupt. And last year it went dormant because Rodgers' Achilles went
went dormant.
But we have the potential to run that back this year and actually get it right this time. And there are a few. This is another team, Pat, where I think the weapons, even though we haven't seen this offense under Aaron Rodgers yet, it's probably consolidated enough for fantasy managers to kind of know what to expect here. But we'll start with Aaron Rodgers, who is a screaming value at QB20.
Obviously, that's who I was talking about when we were talking about Tua. I would rather have him than Tua. Genuinely.
Me too.
Just because I think that upside. I mean, granted, we didn't see him play last year, but he's Aaron Rodgers. He's Aaron Rodgers. Like, I have faith that he can come back from this injury and still play at a high enough level. But again, it's the guys around him. Breece Hall is electric. Garrett Wilson is electric. We just could not see him be electric with who they had under center there last year. I just think it's a good situation coming back into it. And Mike Williams potentially. So like. Yeah, God. So, I think QB20 is crazy. It is crazy. Let me see who's going ahead of this guy.
And I do want to note that this is one player who his ranking on Underdog is pretty different from where I've seen it elsewhere. ESPN's rankings have him as QB12, which I actually think that might be a little overzealous.
I do agree.
As QB20, I think you're almost guaranteed to get return value there unless he does snap his Achilles again.
Oh, this is insane. So I'm going from QB2s on. Caleb Williams, I'd rather have Aaron Rodgers. Justin Herbert, I'd probably rather have Justin Herbert.
Yeah. Close.
Jared Goff. Give me Aaron Rodgers. Trevor Lawrence. I want to say I want Trevor, but I can't in all confidence. Kirk Cousins. Give me Rodgers. Jaden Daniels. Give me Rodgers. And then Matthew Stafford. Give me Rodgers. So, yeah, I think QB 14-ish is a very fair place to put him. But again, if you punt the running back position and you go take a guy like Aaron Rodgers in the 8th, 9th round, again, I do think his name recognition is going to start moving up his ADP, especially in some of your more casual home-based leagues. But I think just that the big difference between him and these other guys we just mentioned is the upside, is the ceiling.
Yeah, Rodgers, just a note on him. If you're worried about the age, I wouldn't necessarily be. Tom Brady had, and I know this is Tom Brady, but Rodgers is a guy who's kind of been known as aging, similarly from a performance standpoint as Tom Brady. Brady had multiple top 12 finishes past age 40, including being QB3 at age 44 in 2021.
Was that year one with the Bucs, or?
I believe that was year one with the Bucs, yeah. And whereas Rodgers is about to be 40. I think he's still 39. He's going to be 40 when the season starts. So you're looking at, Rodgers is 4 years younger than when Tom Brady was QB3 in fantasy. And another important note here that I have, if I can find it exactly. Okay, other than 2022, which was Rodgers' only season with the Packers without Davante Adams, Rodgers has never finished a fully healthy season worse than QB10. And in that Packers season where he didn't have Davante Adams, he was still QB13. So no matter which way you slice it, you're looking at value on QB20. And honestly, in most ways you slice it, Pat, you might be looking at value on QB12 as well. Like, I don't know, looking at these rankings, who I would say, okay, let's say Rodgers finishes as QB10. Who's he knocking off to finish below him? I don't know, but there is a possibility. Like, sure, Rodgers has better weapons than he did in that last year with the Packers without Davante Adams, just by virtue of having Garrett Wilson. And then Mike Williams, I mean, if he can stay healthy, that is one of the better receiving corps he's had in a while. And Breece Hall is a damn good pass-catching running back as well. So you're looking at a guy who, like, again, with Brady having that season in 2021, like, it kind of puts it in perspective. It would not be shocking to see Rodgers finish like top 8 this year. That would be the Jets really reaching their full potential, and I don't know if they're going to, but it's certainly not out of the question if Rodgers is the Rodgers that we've known for so many years. Speaking of Breece Hall, RB3, there's an argument to me, Pat, not the top 3. McCaffrey, I guess, has to stay in his own tier as much as I like the two other guys. But Bijan and Breece, interchangeable for RB2 and 3. Whoever you prefer, I'm good with it. Both super young, both super talented. And, yeah, if I had a pick in after Christian McCaffrey and Bijan were gone, I'm probably smashing that draft button on Breece Hall, regardless of what receivers are available. I'd say at the very
least, I'd put him at RB3.
Yeah, I mean, this was a guy that was somehow productive despite Zach Wilson most weeks. So kudos to him.
That's what I was going to say. Like, we saw him be fantastic with God knows who at quarterback. With Aaron Rodgers, should be a way more competent offense, possibly a good offense, dare I say, for the New York Jets. If that's the case, more goal line opportunities. And, there's a lot of names in that backfield behind him, but none that I'm particularly scared of. Like Braylon Allen and then Israel Abakanda. Sorry, Israel.
Bonaconda. Izzy
but,
bag of candy. Ooh, piece of candy.
So, like, ooh, piece of candy. So, no one's that really gonna super scare me off. So, Breece Hall, slam dunk.
Yeah, there's effectively no depth behind Breece Hall. And then you do have Garrett Wilson, Mike Williams, and Malachi Corley. Wilson is a guy similar to, like, the bad taste left in your mouth by, like, a guy like Jalen Waddle. Get over it, because he's probably going to be.
I'm having a hard time doing that right now myself. So
Garrett Wilson's a guy that, Pat, if I in our draft say if I take Jonathan Taylor or Saquon Barkley with that 8th pick in the first round, and it comes back around to me and Garrett Wilson's available, I may bust. I may bust a nut. That's all I'm saying. Very excited for Garrett Wilson. Very excited for Garrett Wilson to have a real quarterback, provided Rodgers does stay healthy. Which, look, Achilles are random and weird and fluky, so I have no reason to believe that he won't stay healthy. And then Mike Williams, look, I don't know, man. He's wide receiver 51 on Underdog.
Yes.
So, like, that's great value. And in a best ball, again, his middle name might as well be Best Ball. Mike Best Ball Williams, where you have no concern over if he goes down for the year at some point. You are only getting his best games. He's a no-brainer, which honestly, that surprises me even more that his ADP is this low in a best ball league, but in best ball leagues. But look, if you want to take him and see what happens, feel free. But to be honest, him being here just makes me even more confident in Garrett Wilson that like this is kind of his receiving room. Yeah. He's the young guy. He's the upside guy. He's everything.
The Tyler Conklin erasure here is...
Yeah, Tyler Conklin has never been drawn, let alone erased. So I don't know what you're talking about. We're going to have Kenny Yeboah as their starting tight end before you know it. No, jokes aside, Tyler Conklin was fantasy relevant at points last year, which is wild to even think about. Yeah. And with an offense like this, yeah, maybe he pops up, but
Rodgers has never, not since like Jermichael Finley, Aaron Rodgers has never really thrown to a tight end a whole lot.
We have tried to make Rodgers tight ends a thing. That is true.
Fucking Robert Tonyan, like, stop.
Big Bob. He had a bunch of touchdowns that one year, but yeah, other than that.
We need to stop trying to make those things happen. So Tyler Conklin is a low-end tight end too, and rightfully so.
Fuck Tyler Conklin. All right, that'll do it. That'll do it for our fantasy breakdown, Pat. And we are once again going to skip the viewer questions that we had from literally the last edition of the pod. Maybe we'll get to them eventually. And here's how we're going to do this pod, Pat. Now that we are in a slightly new era, we're going to sign off here for the audio version. I'm not going to end the stream right away. I'm going to answer some of the questions in the chat for a little bit. You are free to stick around, or you may go because it is late there, Pat. I know it's late over there.
It's 9 o'clock.
It's very dark. But let me end this in a concise way for the audio folks over there, because again, we are available on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. Just search Brand Coverage and rate us 5 stars if you can. But thank you guys for tuning in to this rebranded Benchwarmer Brand podcast. Thank you for tuning into the first ever technical edition of Brand Coverage. For Pat Gustafson, I'm Brandon Carney, and we'll see you guys next week.
Bye-bye.
See, now your bye-byes won't get cut off because I'm not actually ending the stream. All right. Anybody in the chat that has any questions, we can answer a few of them here. And let me see, were there any super chats I may have missed? I know there were a couple.
I think there were a couple. I saw a few roll in.
Let's see. David Kavanaugh with $10 said, just dropping in to show some love. Love your content. Need to do a collab with Tom Grossi. I'd love to. Tom Grossi does a lot of content with another content creator who's out here in Denver, whose name is also Brandon. So that's super cool. I can sort by just the super chats. Nice. Okay, there are a couple other ones. From Mo Bunga, $4.99 said, why is everyone hating on the Seahawks? Power rankings put us at 26. So many people put us top 10 worst teams just because Geno isn't a top QB. Seahawks as 26th best team in football. I mean, that's probably
seems low.
Yeah.
Not to say they're going to be that much higher though.
No, I think it's tough in that division. You look at, obviously you're going to have both the Niners and the Rams above them in theory. 26 does seem a little low. I don't know why everyone's hating on your Seahawks, man. I got to make my own NFL power rankings, and then I'll decide. And then someone said he's joining the dark side of the league. That was $1.99 from Dead. I think that was about Butker, which, fair enough. So let's see. Any other questions?
He could have done a lot worse things, trust me.
Yeah, very true. Thoughts on the Bears? Very excited to watch them with Caleb Odunze and Keenan Allen. I hope that Caleb is good, because otherwise Bears fans might end it all. Do you think Jordan Addison could finish in the top 20 for wide receivers with a healthy Justin Jefferson on the other side, or is he viewed as just a handcuff? Can Jordan Addison finish top 20?
I think 20 might be a little ambitious, but he can certainly be fantasy relevant.
Yeah, that might be tough, top basis. 20. It really depends on, can J.J. McCarthy be, because I think he was firmly trending toward top 20 if Kirk were healthy all year.
And think about it, though. How many wide receiver twos tend to finish in this top 20? Maybe hopefully Jalen Waddle, and then maybe Devontae Smith and T. Higgins. So, are we talking is Jordan Addison as one of the 3 best wide receiver twos in a situation that warrants that? I don't think so, especially when TJ Hawkinson also comes back probably about midway through the year. I think that takes away from him too. Now, this is not to, rag on Jordan Addison. I think Jordan Addison, will be a fine pick, but 20 is a little festive for me.
Yeah, and then, Nate Jablonski, I think, was the one that mentioned the dark side thing, or he's just specifying for us. He said it was about It was about Joe Burrow, Anakin Skywalker looking at us.
Okay,
that makes total sense. Dark side of the league. Dallas Cowboys for life with $1.99. Appreciate that, man. Thank you very much. Doesn't even have a question with it, but I appreciate you. Let's see what else we have here. Are the Commanders sneaky good? I don't know I'd go that far. No. They have a chance to be decent if Jaden Daniels like truly just puts on a show this year and runs all over everyone. And, they do have friend of the show. Wow. Is he technically friend of the show still? It's a different show. It's a different show.
But it's the same show.
It's the same show.
He is
friend of the show, Austin Eckler. We had him as a guest like last year.
Around this time last year.
Maybe we'll get him on again. We're cooking up a lot of guests actually. So now that we're on a platform with more viewers, Pat, so we'll talk about that eventually. We'll go one more question here before we hop off here because Nelson seems to be very interested in this. Oh, well, Dallas Cowboys who donated said, is CeeDee Lamb good? Yes. Nelson says, do you view the Texans as the biggest threat to the Chiefs in 2024 this year? Also, I love your content. Thank you, Nelson. I appreciate that. Do I view the Texans as the biggest threat to the Chiefs?
Yes.
My Texans fan girlfriend to the side of me says yes. I will say
Lexans. Got him.
He just said Lexans. The Houston Lexans. How have I never made that connection?
You're off your game, brother.
I don't think they're the biggest threat. They're definitely one of. I can't in good conscience say they're a bigger threat than a Ravens team who just met the Chiefs in the AFC title game and then added Derrick Henry. I can't do that.
Yeah. Way more experience. No signs of them getting worse.
The Texans are right behind. The Texans are on that tier with like the Bengals, probably a healthy Bengals team as threats to them.
I like the Bengals too, yeah.
Yeah, and then David Kavanaugh donated. This will be our last one, actually. $5 said, who would you draft out of D-Hop and Ridley? I keep having Ridley fall to me in mock drafts, but I feel Hopkins is better for fantasy with his targets. Oof.
That's disgusting.
I haven't really...
a disgusting team.
Yeah, I haven't really distinguished between the two for fantasy yet.
I feel like I want to say Calvin Ridley just because what they paid.
Yeah,
and that is true. Hopkins is 31 years old.
Yeah,
this isn't the same
Ridley's
D-Hop.
Ridley's 29, but I feel that.
This isn't the same D-Hop. So I would go Ridley, but I think like we're talking splitting hairs here.
Yeah,
honestly, I think this is a very close.
Hopkins was difficult to own last year, and all that happened to him was they brought in Calvin Ridley and paid him $95 million to be target competition. So yeah, I think I am out on Hopkins for the most part.
They also brought in a coach who's going to throw the ball way more than they did under Mike Vrabel and Tim Kelly. That's the other thing.
Tyler Boyd's the answer. No, I'm kidding. If you have to pick between those guys, I think I'd probably pick Ridley. And I will answer this last question because it's relevant. What is the schedule for this podcast? Every Tuesday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, and then we will stick around like this for an extra 5 minutes to answer some questions at the end. Pat, you don't get to ask a question that why are you more handsome? All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
We will see you next week. This has been a roaring success. Welcome to Brand Coverage, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Get on board, folks. Bye-bye.